Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, coach, and mentor, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Hey Jim, I'm doing good. My load is a little bit lighter because we got to spend. You allowed me to have 15 minutes just to unpack some things before we got started
Uh,
today. So thank you for that. I appreciate your
Always
friendship.
iron sharpens iron. I'm learning. I'm learning. So speaking of learning, we're here with episode 207, right?
Yeah.
And we're continuing a series. Tell us a little bit about where we are and where we're headed.
Yeah, this is the third segment in a series called Leadership and in episode 205, we explored leadership and communication, and we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, we did.
In 206, we talked about leadership and seismos moments, those
Right.
those moments of earthquake-like intensity in our leadership. And today, in the third segment, I'd like us to talk, Jim, about leadership and delegation.
Good.
Um,
Huge.
I think sharing the ministry load is a concept that I think a lot of pastors, especially this generation of pastors, I think they get it, in terms on the concept side of it.
Okay.
But I don't think the actual implementation of it comes as naturally to
Yeah.
a leader, especially if you're a perfectionist. Uh, you might think no one can do this as well as I can, and or you may think it's just easier if I do this by myself rather than trying
Yes.
to teach somebody else to do it. I
Yes.
just want to get your initial thoughts on the subject, Jim, and then we'll dive into some things.
Yeah, I think that's a bullseye. Why is it we don't delegate? Well, it's easier to do it myself. I've tried in the past and they didn't get it, so I might as well, as if it's every follower's fault that they don't understand that they're not mind readers. That they, it's how important is it not only to delegate, but in delegating, we're actually discipling. We're creating people doing
Mm,
things for the first time
that's
that we've
good.
done for the thousandth time. But when we're gone, it'll be their turn, and we have a responsibility to prepare them for that. So
That's
delegation is
right.
not about perfection. It's about the ongoing process of leadership.
Yeah, that's really a good thought. And Jesus kind of did it that way, right? I
He
mean,
did. He did.
not kind of, he actually did it that
He
way.
did. Yeah.
He chose these 12 guys to follow him, and he demonstrated the work while they watched. and
Yeah.
and after that he delegated a small venture to them in Luke chapter 10. It's when they went out two by two, and
Yeah.
when they came back, he gives them they report, and he gives them feedback, he gives them
Yeah. Yeah.
perspective. uh but eventually, all of this was with the end in mind, right? That eventually
Yeah.
he was going to fully delegate and fully empower them to do the work
Yeah.
after he left. And the promise he gave to them was, here it is. I've given you the authority to do this,
Yeah.
to make disciples, to
Yeah.
baptize in my name, and lo, I will be with you to the end of the age. And so the part of it, that I think is neat about it is that Jesus didn't say, "Here you go. I'll talk to you in 10 years."
Figure it
He
out.
was he was with them
Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
all along the way. And so I think pastors either don't know how to delegate, or they've delegated and it hasn't gone as well as they had hoped. And I'd like to kind of address that today, if we
Yeah.
could.
Right.
Just some practical tips around
Yeah.
delegation. And then I want to talk, after we do that, talk about some levels of trust as it
Hmm.
relates to delegation. And I
Good.
think maybe that'll be helpful and insightful. So
Yeah.
I'll just get rolling with some of these delegation tips, and Jim, jump
Yeah.
in
Deal.
as you like. So here's the first delegation tip, and that is this: delegation is not easy. It's just not easy, but you can
It's
learn
not
to
easy.
do it well. You
Yeah.
can learn how to do it. I did. I was not a natural delegator when I
Yeah.
started in pastoral ministry. I had to learn that skill.
Mm.
So I think just understanding this is not an easy thing to do, but it will make my life better if I learn how to do it. And it will make our church's life better if I learn how to do
Yes.
it. and it'll make
Yes.
my spouse's wife better if I learn
Yeah.
how to do this
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Everybody wins when
Yes.
I learn how to do this well. Um,
Yeah.
so just understand it's not easy. Secondly, clear description of what you want, the project, if it's a project, and the intended
Yeah.
outcome increases your chances of a good result.
Hmm.
Sometimes that description needs to be written if the project is complicated. Sometimes it can just be a text or a
Yeah.
verbal to do in a meeting, or maybe a short 1 to 2 sentence note. The point here is
Yeah.
the delegator needs to know what they want. What do you think about that
Yes.
second tip, Jim?
Well, and what's funny is you say, well, I sent a text. That might be good for some leaders. It may be
Yes.
completely insufficient for others. I wrote it down, an entire page of instructions. That might be good for some leaders, not for me. If you want me to do something, record your voice, record a video, take an ounce of prevention, an ounce of preparation that'll turn into a pound of response. I need to hear your voice, the tone of it. I need to see your face. I need to,
Yeah.
and in 30 seconds, I can grasp what you want done. But a quick text, hey, let's do dinner tonight. I don't even know what that means. Am I in trouble? Are we, so I've got this young man. He's my assistant. He's in our year-long discipleship ministry. Now he's in his second year. And I started with a text. Hey, try this. Well, then it didn't turn out the way that I'd envisioned. So, hey, do this, and here's another way. Finally, I learned he was helping with some stuff. I walked around with my phone and videotaped my voice and pointed at the things that I wanted from here to here, and he'll do that, and flawless. So the entire time, the problem wasn't he's not a good person to delegate to. I actually wasn't doing a good job of delegating, talking to him the way that he needed to hear my voice. So
So
I think that's huge.
that's an interesting point. So part of what I think I hear you saying there is
Yeah.
understanding what communication style works with each person on your team.
Yes.
Is that the right way?
Absolutely. Because otherwise, if you don't, you start to believe the lies that delegation is always going to be hard and no one gets it right. And that's not true.
Yeah.
Just a couple minutes of conversation or a couple of failed attempts with trying
Uh,
new ways to succeed
yes.
is part of delegation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you pushed up on that. Here's a third tip.
Yeah.
Provide a clear reason why.
Hmm.
Why does this project matter? Why is this task important? I think sometimes the way you do that is helping to connect the dots between the task or series of tasks
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
end zone. We talk about vision being the end zone.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
how does this actually get us further down the field towards that big picture vision God has given us? I
Yeah.
think a good sense of why helps. Here's another tip: define a clear set of parameters.
Yeah.
And that takes a little thinking on the part of the delegator, right? Here's
Yeah.
here's the boundaries we don't want you to cross in the execution of this project or this task. One, our values, you know, don't don't violate the values.
Yeah.
Uh here's the budget. Maybe sometimes there's budget involved in it, like here's how much you can spend.
Yeah.
Um, here's some of the things that we've learned in the past as we've worked together,
Yeah.
where there may have been some good things that have happened and maybe some issues, but taking some time to say, here's the boundary lines. Anything in between these,
Yeah.
go.
Go.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
does that make sense? That
Yeah. I think
point
too,
that way?
expectation of deadline. This should take you about this much
There
time,
you go. That's good.
or I need it by Friday, things like that. Because otherwise, I've seen people dump everything they're doing because they thought I asked them to drop everything they were doing right now, and I was thinking with my mouth open. I wasn't even saying something. I was
Yeah.
simply thinking an idea. They dropped everything they were doing and came back with this proposal that I really had never asked for. Or I say, hey, it's been a couple of weeks. How are you coming along with that? Oh, I haven't started yet. Now I'm frustrated because I haven't started.
Sure.
I'm frustrated because I dropped everything because I didn't create the expectation of time.
Jim, do you think being collaborative and setting that timeline is a good idea on most occasions? Is that,
Collaborative
or do
or at
you
least
think that's too
flexible.
much? Huh?
Yeah, I think asking somebody how long do you think it'll take to go to the grocery store and get me a sandwich, that's not necessary because everybody
Right.
knows that. But there's a project that I think it'll probably take me about a week. How long do you think it'll take you? based on the parameters and constrictions of your life. And they say, well, I think it'll take, 2 weeks because I have 14 young children at home and a wife that's waiting for me to get there. I don't have
Right.
the luxury of my evenings to work. So yeah, I think that's good. As long as there's an understanding, right? That's the goal.
There you go.
We understand what the task is. We understand the authority, the budget, the time, the constraints, what a win looks like. And I can hear people saying, well, by the time I do that, I might as well have done it myself. It's like, I don't think so. I think we can do that in 90 seconds. It may take 9 days, depending on the task. For building a home, it takes more than 90 seconds. But if we're setting up a room for an event, I think that's 90 seconds. I want these there by then, and these are the people you have to do it, and this is why we're doing it. And thanks so much for your help. That's 90 seconds, and it won't have to be done twice, and people will feel appreciated for having done it.
I had a client many years ago who was struggling with workload, associate pastor, and
Yeah.
it's a younger guy. And I said, well, how do you prioritize your work? He says, I start with the top of the pile. And
Okay.
I said, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I said, what's on the top of that pile? He says, everything my lead pastor asked me to do.
Poor
And I
guy.
and I
Oh,
said, is that your perception, or is that self-imposed, or is he imposing that on you? He says, no, that's self-imposed.
yeah.
I'm assuming that everything he asks me to do is priority. And I said,
Yeah.
well, how about asking him to help you with that? So if you're
Yeah.
working on something and he puts something on your desk, asking him something like this. I'm working on this project right now.
Yeah.
Are you asking me to take this and set it aside and focus on this right now?
Good.
And so he did that, to his credit. And the next meeting that I had with him, he said, John, my life's changed.
Yeah.
It's it's so much better
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the pastor's, basically what he said is since we talked last, and it had been maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks, he said almost everything my pastor asked me to do was, hey, that can wait. I need it.
Right.
I need it in a week, or I need it in 10
Good.
days. And
Good.
and so I think
Mm.
I think asking, if you're on the you're the delegate you're being delegated
Yeah.
to, I do think asking what's the priority
Yeah.
is a really important part of the puzzle here.
Hmm.
So it's not easy. We need a clear description of what we're asking somebody to do. Sometimes it should be in writing, sometimes it should be a video, depending
Yeah.
on how that person receives information the best.
Yeah.
We want to be clear about why it matters, set some parameters, some deadlines, and really, I think lastly, just define, what does a win look like? How do
Yeah.
we know How do we know what does success look like with this project? And I think that's not a delegatee's job to figure out. It's the
Yeah.
delegator's
Or,
job.
or you'll be disappointed, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, because they may say we did a great job, and I had none of that in mind when I delegated that to you. You have to define the win. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's pivot for a minute and talk about
Okay.
trust when it comes
Yeah.
to delegation. This what we're about to share is not something that I came up with on my own. I was listening to a podcast from Michael Hyatt about
Hmm.
almost 4 years ago. I think it was 4 years
Hmm.
ago, and it
Yeah.
was so impactful. I was at the gym lifting weights, listening to
Yeah.
this podcast, and Jim, it just struck me as, wow, no wonder in the past I've struggled with delegation because I
Mm.
didn't understand these 5 levels of trust. So I'm just
Okay.
gonna give them to
Yeah.
you, and then I'd love to have some feedback from you.
Yeah.
So level one delegation, level one trust is do exactly what I ask you to do. Do not
Yes.
deviate. Do not, there's no flexibility. Here's the script, go do it.
Hmm.
That level doesn't require a tremendous amount of trust.
Right.
Level two would be, hey, I'm not sure exactly what I want you to do. I'd like you to research this problem I'm trying to solve and report back to me what you've learned. So
Good.
now the trust level is going up a little bit because I'm
Yeah.
asking them to do something I'm not sure what I want. I'm not sure how to
Right.
solve this. And so I'm giving them some opportunity to research and come back to me with, hey, come back with a couple of options.
Right.
And then we'll figure out what to do. Level three, now we're starting to move up this trust ladder is, hey, not only do I want you to research the topic and come back with some options, I really want to hear your recommendation.
Hmm.
What do you think we should do?
Yeah.
And now I think you can kind of see this ladder, right? That each
Yeah.
one we go
Yeah.
up requires a little more trust. Hyatt then says, here's level four delegation, level four trust. You tell this person, go ahead, research it, make a decision, and then
Yeah.
just tell me what you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then level five is research it, make whatever decision you think is best, and I don't even need to know about it.
Right. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, so those last two levels require a lot of trust.
Yeah.
Here's where I've fallen down in the past, Jim. Sometimes I've expected someone to operate at level four or level five when they weren't ready for that.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I've given a person level one trust when they're ready for a much higher level of trust, and I've
Right.
insulted them,
Yeah.
you
That'd
know?
be frustrating to both, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Right. And so I think
Yeah.
there's some trial and error to delegation, and
Yeah.
especially as it relates to this level of trust. So what do you think of these levels of trust and how it influences our delegation success, maybe even as our outcomes?
Yeah. Well, I think the goal is to get people in that 4 or 5 range, as many as we can, once everybody's capable. So
Yeah,
I think that I mean, if we think about it as leaders, how would our lives, the effect of our ministries, businesses, etc., our time, our resources change if we had one more level 4, level 5 person to delegate to? Now
well,
multiply that by 5 or 10 or 15,
yeah,
and now it's an army, right? I mean,
that's right.
15 level 5 leaders. That's a youth pastor. That's a children's pastor. That's a worship leader. That's a whatever that is. That's entire departments where you're having weekly meetings to stay in touch, to keep the vision aligned. To
Yep.
that, who wouldn't want that? And you say, well, you're talking about a church of thousands. I'm really not. I'm talking about a church, of dozens. To have
Yeah,
a dozen people in a church of several dozen people, where you trust level 4, level 5. Now the lawn's mowed, the walls
yeah,
painted the right color, the coffee stain is cleaned every Sunday because the same person spills the same coffee in the same place on the same pile of carpet. Whatever that is, and what's wonderful is if you are a person being delegated to at that level, you don't go to church, you are the church. You're
yeah,
that
that's
isn't
good.
that isn't the pastor's church. That's my church.
Yeah,
I'm the one who gets to. I'm the one who's been entrusted with. So I think that is discipleship to some degree. Is what we just talked about. Jesus making
yeah,
disciples. That's Jesus led with his absence in mind. I will not always be here. Matter of fact, in
yeah,
36 months, 34 months, 30 months, say in 22 months. I mean, I don't know how aware he was of the timing, but he knew that he would grow old leading these people.
that's right.
So that
And
that thought of leading with your absence in mind, who's the right person to entrust to, how to entrust it
yeah,
to them. This is not some peripheral issue. This is cornerstone, bedrock, key things of leadership.
I think so. And I think, Jim, that not every person will attain level five. There are
Yeah,
going to be some folks in our
and that's fine.
organization that'll be level one or level two, and that's
Yep.
okay. We need
Yeah,
we need level one and we need level two.
we do.
Problem is when I expect a different level of ability or trust
Yeah.
from somebody who can't give that to me. Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, we had a level five person. I helped our church many years ago plant a campus, and
Yeah.
uh, we had actually, I think we had several level five people, but the one I'm thinking of this morning is her name was Amy, and Amy was over our hospitality, our
Hmm.
connections ministry, and when I sat with Amy and talked, I said, Amy, I have an idea. She would grab her phone. And while I
Hmm.
shared the idea, she'd take a couple notes and then she would look at me and she said, John, I got it.
Hmm.
I never had to think about it again. I just
Right.
and everything she did was a 10. I mean, it wasn't
Right.
it was this was her thing. She was in the intersection of her passion, pain, and proficiency.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was so amazing to have somebody like that. And I didn't even need to know, because I had that much trust in her that it would be first
Yeah.
class, it would be well done, it would be consistent with our values, our vision,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. What a blessing to have some fives. And boy, I think
Yeah.
you said it earlier. How much better would everything be in our world, in our church's world, in our family, if we could
Yeah.
see that develop and we have a handful, we have six or a dozen,
Yeah.
four or fives, man, I'll tell you what,
Well,
our
I
life
think
is so much better.
the two questions that every pastor is asking themselves right now is what is Amy's phone number, and is she willing to move? That's right, because
Yes.
everybody wants an Amy. I was at a church the other day, and the assistant of the pastor, her name is Robin, and the joke around the church is even Batman needed a Robin. Like that's how cool this lady is. And I agree. I think everybody needs a Robin. Everybody needs an Amy. Everybody needs, I guess there's male names in there too somewhere.
Yeah.
But
And I would say this, that if you're patient as a leader
yeah,
and you keep your eyes open, maybe Robin or Amy didn't
yeah,
start out at five, but you see potential there. Or
yeah,
maybe they're already that.
yeah,
I believe that God has put people in your church, in your
yes,
organization,
yeah,
that have the potential to become, if they're not already, fours or fives.
yeah.
And that is
Beautiful.
going to help the church you lead have a better chance at fulfilling its God-given destiny.
Yeah,
Um, and I think you'll increase the chances of leading better,
yeah,
leading longer, and having a lot more fun along the way. So, Jim, why don't you wrap us up?
yeah. Well, I think of nothing else, John. This has been great, but the language of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your culture, on your teams, I just so everybody knows what we're talking about. We are wanting to create ones into fives. We want to help them move along. Someone walks in demanding they're a five. Let's start them at a two. Something might be a
There you
little
go.
off there, right?
Yep.
But growing people in that position, because we say it all the time that the number of people we can minister to is predicated on the number of people that we have that have ministry for others inside of them. So
Yeah.
this is discipleship. This is huge, and finding those fours and fives are the ones that could be, or the fours that should be a one, and discerning that, but having that language so everybody's
Yes.
on the same sheet of music, I think is brilliant. So thank you so much for this today, and we hope that you benefited by watching this, by listening to this, by reading the transcript of it. However you get this, we're glad you got it, because I think we believe in you as the pastor, as the leader. We want you to succeed. So this is a great example of information that can literally transform the organizations you serve. So God bless you. We are praying for you. Once again, it's Tuesday and you didn't quit. So you must have grit. So God bless you as you continue to lead from alignment.